And we are back with another great episode of Liam Picks Fights, brought to you by Prize Picks. Guys, wanted to let you know that today's show is being brought to you by Prize Picks. It is the simplest game in fantasy sports. It's not like you have to play against everybody. There's no sharps. It is just the house that you are playing against. And the way that it works is very simple. Prize Picks is basically going to set a projection, and that could be for a single stat category. In MMA, that's things like takedowns, significant strikes, and fight time. And then alternatively, they're going to offer a fantasy score, right? And all you're doing is selecting over or under on a projection, and you pick anywhere from 2 to 5 outcomes that you like from a given fight card. Or if you like other sports, I don't really know about the other sports so well, but a lot of people out there like to play on multiple sports. Prize Picks offers you the ability to mix and match between different sports. So it's a lot of fun. I'm going to talk to you guys today about my Prize Picks entry for this weekend. And I'm also going to talk with my friend Phoenix MMA about some of the bets that we have upcoming on the UFC Vegas 36 card between Derek Brunson and Darren Till. So we're expecting fireworks. It's a great middleweight matchup. I'm excited to break down some of my betting action, but I'm also excited to break down some fantasy action brought to you by Prize Picks. And to do that, I brought along a great friend and a smart friend, Phoenix MMA. Phoenix, how you doing today, brother?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me on again, and happy to talk the fights.
Absolutely, my friend. I'm happy to have you on. The first thing I wanted to mention right off the top, I know you crushed some line movement on one of these fights, and I know you said you don't have a ton of betting action. So before we get into anything else, why don't we first tell the people, what was that line movement that you crushed over there, Phoenix? You take a victory lap here, my friend.
Yeah, I actually got in with Jack Shore at minus 275. It was the opener for the. I used a couple bucks. It was the opening line, the best one I could get, and I just think that's a great line. I mean, I think Jack Shore. I think this is a complete levels fight. Like I think Jack Shore's pretty much better everywhere. I think he's the much more technical striker. I think that Shalini has pretty bad striking defense, really hittable. I think Shore's the better wrestler. I think Shore's the more opportunistic grappler. Shore's the one coming in on the full camp. And I think a big thing is with Ludovic is the fight with Vince Cachero, who we've seen so far in the UFC, is not that great of a grappler. I mean, that was a very competitive fight. Like Ludovic couldn't really take him down until like midway through the second round. And even there, like Cachero was holding his own, getting some reversals. They were scrambling. And I just feel like Jack Shore would destroy Vince Cachero in on the mat and just submit him, probably take his back and submit him. So I also think Ludovic is pretty much he seems like an okay wrestler, but he doesn't really do anything. Like he kind of just holds on to you. He doesn't really look like he passes much or like goes for the finish. And I just think I don't think he's a bad fighter, but I think Jack Shore's a very solid fighter, very process driven fighter, and this is really just a mismatch here. I mean, I think Jack Shore should be minus 400, minus 500. Where the line is now, honestly. So yeah, that's really happy with that spot to get the minus 275.
Absolutely, my man. And I'm going to pull up best fight odds here for a second because I could tell you right now the best market price on Jack Shore is minus 490. So that was an absolute steal that you got on the money line. What I would also share, and the reason that I wanted to highlight this fight, is that currently, if you look at some of the sharpest books out there, Bet Online is the one that I always think of when I think of the sharpest book in the space. And sharp because they pay for that information, right? They write a lot of bad tickets when they first release a line like minus 275 on Jack Shore, but then they get hip to it because they have access to the smartest action. They see where the biggest bettors are placing wagers and they react accordingly, right? So if you look at Bet Online, Jack Shore's all the way out to minus 600, which is what I think he deserves to be in this spot. Yeah. And Sharp Action has indicated that. What you see is that the retail sports books, it's in particular, I believe DraftKings and FanDuel are the only two sports books right now holding Jack Shore under minus 500. So I wanted to just encourage anybody, if you have access to those books and you're looking to get in on Jack Shore, then be careful. Price shop. Jack Shore is available minus 490 in certain places, minus 600 in other places. So you got to be careful. You always got to look for the best line and the best price that you can possibly get. So I didn't get Phoenix's great line here, but I did put down a pretty decent chunk of change by my standards, especially on Jack Shore. I did it as part of a parlay. So I don't want to give too much away there. Got a little bit of lucky inside information as well that went along with that parlay bet. But man, feeling really good about the chances of Jack Shore coming through. I think he's going to close market wide, above minus 550 on average would be my guess. And so I think if you got in anywhere, above minus 500, you're probably in good shape. I wouldn't approach it as a straight bet at this point because it has gotten away from us, but I do think that Jack Shore is the most likely winner in any fight over the weekend. And so just wanted to highlight that for the people real quick. It's not every week that we have a mismatch anymore in the UFC. Sometimes we have, pick 'em fights from top to bottom. And this is an opportunity where it seems like odds makers and bettors are both hip to it, but Jack Shore should be able to run away with this one. I think he's a real top prospect when I envision him in the UFC moving forward. So we got 3 people rocking with us right now live, and we appreciate each and every one of you guys and everybody that tunes in on the replay as well. Just want to shout out my man Payne, Fight Predictions, constantly in the chat. We appreciate you. My man Drew, who I just got to speak to for the first time today. He's been lighting up the chat and sharing positivity. Appreciate that always. So thank you guys for rolling with us. Now, Phoenix, what I wanted to bring on real quick was I'm going to talk about my Prize Picks plays here, and you could tell me if you think I'm a lunatic. You could tell me if you think I'm an idiot, and I think it'll serve as a really good, way of bridging that gap to talk about a fight as well. So I don't know how deep you've gone on the Darren Till fight with Derek Brunson, but that's the main event. So it's a fight that I was looking at, in detail, and man, really liked some of the opportunities on Prize Picks in terms of their projections and what I'm going to be able to lock in for my play this week. So first and foremost, I got Darren Till under 16 minutes. The reason that I was looking towards that is because, I think that there's a high propensity that this fight finishes early. I don't think that Derek Brunson's going to be able to have continued success with the wrestling in control positions. And if he's not, it's probably going to turn into a prolonged striking affair where Derek Brunson's style of getting aggressive and coming forward will leave him susceptible, or Darren Till's, sometimes overconfidence and willingness to exchange in the pocket, it might get him caught. So I think that under 16 minutes is a spot that I was really looking towards there because I think that Derek Brunson's best path is early. And I think that Darren Till, while he hasn't had a lot of finishes in the UFC, especially of late, I think that a southpaw versus southpaw matchup actually gives him an interesting opportunity to do so. And in addition, there's a massive age advantage here. And fighters over that 38 years old threshold are where I want to start looking for people to get knocked out with greater frequency. And Derek Brunson already, unfortunately, as somebody I'm a big fan of, gets knocked out with greater frequency than average as well. So just a couple red flags I see on the Derek Brunson side here. If this turns into a prolonged striking affair, I don't think it's going to last 16 minutes. You think I'm crazy, or how do you feel about that play, Phoenix?
Yeah, I think it's a decent look. In terms of the fight distance in this fight, I think I'm not the most interested in looking at it from that way because I feel like it could end early. I feel like it could extend. If I honestly had to pick, I do think the fight probably ends like around that mark, around the 3rd, 4th roundish, but I can see it going the distance. But yeah, my outlook on the fight is similar to yours, and but it also different and is also a little bit different in some ways. But I'll let you continue on with your Prize Picks before we get into that.
Absolutely. Well, I only have one other Prize Pick selection from this fight, and that would be Darren Till under 63.5 significant strikes. And I actually think that this is my favorite Prize Picks play of all the ones that I've targeted so far. And that's because, Darren Till, if you look back through his career history, he's met a personal best twice in significant strikes at 49. right? So 49 is the most significant strikes he's ever landed in a UFC bout. And so they're saying 63.5. I think that they're expecting him to land more than average and probably to throw a little bit more than average in this spot. I think that they're looking at the fact that Derek Brunson's a little more hittable, but I don't know that it's going to last 63 and a half strikes for one part. And number two, I have a bunch of evidence that says, Darren Till is probably not going to land 63 and a half significant strikes in an average fight, even if it goes the distance. He tends to be a little low volume, a little hesitant sometimes in these fights. And so I think that that's my favorite Prize Picks play. That is going to be a part of whatever entry I end up with. I'm leaning right now towards making a 3-leg $10 power play to win 50 on those two Darren Till props and one other prop from a fight that you haven't taped. So I'll discuss it at the end. But, I think that Darren Till is very unlikely to land 63 and a half significant strikes here. What about you?
Yeah, I think that's a great play, honestly. I mean, it's just if his personal best is 49 and he's been 5 rounds multiple times and hasn't landed more than 49 significant strikes, I mean, 63 and a half, like they're saying that he's got to land 15 more strikes than his personal best in a fight where, we expect him to finish it. So it may not even go late, especially with you saying that you think the fight has a good chance of ending early. I mean, I think that's a great play for how you view the fight.
Well, I appreciate that, my man. Hopefully it turns out all right for me then. And then the last thing I'm looking at to just close out what we're talking about with Prize Picks here. And again, guys, this isn't betting. Want to be clear about what Prize Picks is. This is a fantasy game, right? This is legal in my great state of New York. So I don't have to drive across the border to go put down any action. This is a entry that I'm making where, I'm playing just against Prize Picks projections. That's it, right? I'm not playing against the sharps. It's just you against the company. And I'm going to try and take Prize Picks to task here. I think they're overestimating how many significant strikes Darren Till is going to land. And guys, if you want to get involved in the same action, you could do so. If you think Liam's crazy and I want to take the over, no problem. Either way, you could go to prizepicks.com. They will deposit match you 100% up to $100. So just throw in that promo code Liam if you decide you want to play. It would mean a lot to me. It helps support the show and it lets Prize Picks know that you're watching and paying attention. So God bless. Appreciate each and every one of you if you decide to make it to a Prize Picks entry. Now, that being said, to close out my entry, my 3-legger here, I got Jonathan Martinez under 14.75 minutes. And, the reason being is because you look at his last fight, right? He gets deaded by Davey Grant as a big favorite. Most people didn't expect that. Now he comes in lined a lot closer here with Marcelo Rojo, who, loses to Charles Jourdain via finish in his UFC debut, has been finished on the regional scene, a bevy of times at this point. In the 3rd round, but also early. He's been finished early. He's been finished in the 3rd round. In his last fight, he was finished late as well. So I think that, the Prize Picks people, they're looking at the fact that these guys have both gotten finished in their last fight. Maybe they'll come out hesitant. Maybe the durability is improved for these guys. I think that one way or the other, this fight's probably going to end inside the distance. I think that these guys both meet in the middle and swing hammers. I think Jonathan Martinez is a little more crisp and technical, so he's going to be, landing big shots from the outside. I think that Marcelo Rojo is a gangster, and he comes forward and throws those big hooks in the pocket no matter what. So, I feel good about the under for that fight anyway. If I look at best fight odds, just as an example of what we're looking at here, the under 2.5 rounds is currently sitting at, plus 105, minus 111, depending on where you look, it's at over 50%. That this fight is going to end in under 2.5 rounds. And so now I'm basically getting the fight to end inside the distance. 14.75 really covers all your bases, unless you get one of those Leo Santos knockouts with 1 second on the clock. I really feel like this is a pretty decent spot to target some violence, and I'm going to target that under. I got 3 plays here, 3 unders. So I'm hoping that Darren Till gets to work fast, or Derek Brunson takes him out early. Either way would cover my ass for that. And then I'm hoping that Jonathan Martinez is able to get Marcelo Rojo out of there early, or he gets finished early and gets cleaned up. So that's going to be my Prize Picks entry. I'm going to do a $10 power play to win $50, and that's how I'm attacking the board. So shout out to Prize Picks for bringing us this stream, for bringing me and Phoenix together to do this today. And like I said, if you want to get in on the action, check out everything Prize Picks has to offer. Go look at their reviews. They got a ton of 5-star reviews as well. So I hope you'll check them out, give them a chance. And if you decide to deposit, go ahead, put that promo code in, Liam. Let them know I sent you. I always appreciate when you support the show. So Phoenix, now we can kick it back to the betting side of things, right? So we're out of the fantasy and back to the betting. And man, what is another fight that you're fired up on from a betting perspective on this card?
Yeah, the only other bet I have is not a fight that I'm, super confident in, but I just feel that it's a value play, and it's actually the Molly McCann versus Ji Yoon Kim fight. And I actually like Molly here.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people on Kim this week, so I'm interested to hear your take. I didn't go into this too deep, to be fair.
Yeah, reason being is I think a large portion of why this line is where it is because of the reach. With reason, I mean 10-inch reach advantage is pretty massive, but I just feel like Kim never really utilizes her reach that effectively pretty much ever. With that being said, it's still you still have to take into account that she can hit Molly much farther away than Molly can hit her. But
for sure,
if we look at the metrics between these fighters, I mean, Molly McCann is the much more accurate striker. I mean, I think she's 16% more accurate overall, landing more significant strikes. And she has a much better striking defense. I believe Molly McCann actually has pretty good striking defense in the pocket, opposed to Kim, who doesn't really move her head. I also think Molly has the speed advantage. I mean, I think the majority of women have the speed advantage over Kim. She's not really the quickest in the world. But on the feet, I mean, because of the reach advantage and, Kim does put on some decent pressure, it's hard for me to line it any further than close to 50-50. I do give Molly the slight edge on the feet, but the reason that I cap it a little bit higher for Molly is because of her wrestling. I mean, I don't think her wrestling is great by any means. Her takedowns aren't the cleanest, but I think she attempts like 5 takedowns per fight. And Ji Yoon Kim does not have very good takedown defense at all. She looks like a fish out of water on her back. She doesn't really. I've never really seen her showcase any skills in getting up. She doesn't really look like she knows what to do. So I think Molly can land a couple takedowns potentially per round. And yeah, I just think that when we look at Molly McCann and how she's losing her fights, I mean, she's getting out grappled by a stronger grappler. I mean, Tyler Santos, Jillian Robertson, uh, what's the other girl? Laura Procopio. I mean, these are girls that are all out grappling her. Molly McCann cannot stuff a takedown. She's not very good at that whatsoever. But when she's winning fights, she's landing takedowns. She's landing takedowns pretty decently, and she's also landing over 100 significant strikes against those opponents. I mean, when I taped the Molly McCann versus Ariana Lipsky fight, I can see the fight going very similar to that. Molly just like Lipsky had the advantage, the reach advantage in that fight, and Molly was able to get in the pocket and get out because she was quicker, and then she grounded Ariane multiple times at the end of rounds to secure rounds. And honestly, I actually have a pretty bold take for this fight. I think Molly McCann is going to win this fight via ground and pound on the ground, because Molly, when she does get takedowns, she actually throws some pretty decent ground and pound. She's very aggressive. And like I said, I don't think Ji Yoon Kim is very good off her back whatsoever. I don't really think that she knows what she's doing, honestly. She just likes to strike and put pressure on, and that's where she's decent. I think she puts on decent pressure. She has that big reach advantage over the majority of girls in the division. I think she has some decent power for the division, but again, I just think that Molly, metric wise, has a huge advantage here. And when she's losing fights, she's getting out grappled, and this is a fight where she doesn't have to worry about the grappling. I don't think Kim's going to go to the grappling. I know she hasn't landed a takedown. I don't think she's ever shot for a real takedown, maybe like one or something. But I just feel that Molly can get in and out of the pocket quicker to land more, because I think she has the speed advantage. I think she has very good striking defense inside the pocket to defend the strikes of Kim. And I think she can mix in the wrestling and potentially get a finish on the ground. So this isn't one of the opponents that Molly McCann typically loses to. And I think this is a good fight for her. I think this is a good bounce back fight for her. She knows she needs a win. She said it in an interview. She knows she needs a win here. She knows her job is probably on the line here if she loses the fight. And I think she's going to come in like she always does with good intensity. I think she's going to come in with a good game plan, mix in some takedowns. And again, I just think that she's going to land way more strikes because Kim is just not an accurate striker. 34% striking accuracy. It's not great. It's because she's not that fast. She has this reach advantage, but she doesn't utilize the jab anywhere near the volume she should, and she's not fast, so she can't really put together quick combinations versus someone like Molly who bounces a lot and is able to get in and out of the pocket. And I just think the fight's going to go very similar to the Ariana Lipski fight. Now, again, I don't have a supreme level of confidence. I'm not saying like I have Molly McCann like 60, 65%. I just think 55% is probably accurate in my opinion. I think she should be the minus 125 favorite. And I got her at plus money. Got her at plus, I think it was 105. So I think there's a slight edge there. And let's go Meatball.
Fair enough. Now, I have to say, when I looked at the stats, you know, I see a lot of what you're talking about. I have a pretty decent stats model in front of me. And, you know, the things that concern me on the Molly McCann side is that she just allows so much control to her opponents. Yeah, I can see what you mean about the grappling stats. It's funny, her grappling stats, which you're like, you know, you're looking towards her to grapple in this fight. Her grappling stats are far worse than her striking stats in the UFC so far. Because their striking stats aren't horrible. You know, they're not great, but they're not horrible. I do think, you know, I see where you're coming from for sure, man. I'm worried about those anthropomorphic advantages. I think that would keep me off it ultimately. And I hope that you're wrong about Molly McCann finding the finish. You know, even if she wins, I hope she goes to decision here. I got a little bit of money staked on those outcomes. So, but we'll see, man. I think that Gramps in the chat saying, let's go, boys. It's got me fired up, man. I'm ready to go on this card. I'll tell you, I got a little bit of action on some fights that we haven't talked about. Got in on David Zawada, 1.2 units at plus 125. Did you get a chance to tape that fight?
I did. Yeah, I think it's going to be a very close fight. I just feel like the way they match up, I feel like it's going to be close, and I feel like Zawada's probably the side. I do actually lean Morono a bit just because I feel like he has probably the power advantage on the feet, but I don't know. I think he also has the volume advantage potentially, but I do think Zawada will like fight. I think the way they match up, I think they're both going to throw similar volume. I feel like whenever Morono fights, I feel like that on the feet, I feel like regardless of if you throw a lot of volume or if you don't, I just feel like they always end up throwing decent volume on the feet. I just feel like that's the way people match up against him. But yeah, I think Zawada is the side at plus money, especially at like that plus like 160 opener or whatever it was.
Yeah,
but,
that was nice. I think now the best you could get him is plus 120. I'm going to double check that. Yeah, plus 120 at William Hill, and nowhere else is hanging that right now. You know, the reason I got involved was because I was quite sure that Zawada was going to end up closing here at even money. And, you know, I think you would think Alex has more power, but I don't know that the stats bear it out in terms of his like knockdown rate, by example, in the UFC. But I think that Zawada, man, he impressed me against Amib. That was a really close fight. And that Abu Bakar win aged pretty well, in my opinion. So I feel like his wins have aged well in the UFC, and he hasn't been all that active. So I feel like people didn't really know who he was. And Morono's been fresh on people's mind. You know, he fighting big names, Pettis, Cerrone. I really think that just inflated the line, like his name recognition going up so much. I think that there's no reason otherwise that this wouldn't be a pick'em fight because of what you said. You know, it's got a lot of competitive elements to it. So, you know, do I wish I got that plus 160? Yes. Am I glad that I drove across the border to New Jersey to get down that plus 125 when I did? Yes, because Phoenix that morning I woke up and saw it was plus 140, and I was like, excellent. I could just drive over there, take my time, go place a wager, feeling good. And then I refresh best fight odds and it's plus 125. I was like, if I don't leave now, who knows what I'll get? So this was a line that I think people got hip too fast. We got Drew here saying Zawada should take this no diss to Alex with the short notice. I don't know. I like the under 2.5 for sure. Hey, I rock with that, man. I think Zawada live to find a sub here. But Alex has, you know, he's got his own jiu-jitsu game, but feel like a club and sub is live here. I feel like Alex, he kind of overwhelms people sometimes in the really early going. I don't think that's likely, but I think that would be a wise strategy for him to pursue. We got Gramps here saying he's got 1 unit on Zawada as well. So a couple people in the chat riding with me there on the Zawada train, but I would say that the train's basically left the station unless you got access to William Hill and you want to put down that plus 120 right now. I would say once it approaches that plus 110, plus 115. I don't know how much value there's left to extract there, but, depends where you cap him, right? If you think that he should be minus 150, by all means, do your thing. So I'm going to move along to another bet that I have here. I got 1 unit down on Jonathan Martinez against Marcelo Rojo at minus 155. I know that that's a fight you didn't have tremendous interest in. So the last one that I have in terms of a bet is the Spivak inside the distance, 0.25 units at plus 425, man. And I know a lot of people have been, riding that Spivak underdog, wave right now. And to be honest with you, I did get in on Spivak at plus 210 on the money line for half a unit as well. But that line was gone by the time I went to track it. So if that line comes back, it will probably end up being a tracked wager for me. If not, it will end up like Gerald Mearshart in my hopes and dreams as a bet that I made look like a smart guy, except I can't track it because I missed the line movement. So frustrating, but yeah, I got half unit down on that. And then I have a quarter unit down on him inside the distance. And for pretty simple reasons, man. I don't know how far back you went in Aspinall's tape, but I went back to watch his loss against Stuart Austin. And man, that was, I thought, a little bit concerning because he kind of fights in these bursts, these waves is how I like to think about it, where, he goes for these huge finishing moments early. And if it doesn't work, he needs to like reset, recharge, get a breath back before he tries to do something again. I felt like the Arlovsky fight was another good example of that. Went in a bunch of big body shots, like just threw like 15 of them, 20 of them in a row. And then he was looking like he was drunk on the way back to his corner. So I was like, wow, that's a little concerning. And then you go back and you look at the Stuart Austin fight, he's getting out wrestled pretty tremendously, which is a concern in of itself. But then on top of that, what was really concerning me, man, was that he would get back on top. Like he was athletic enough to like reverse position. By the way, tiny heavyweight. Stuart Austin, the guy he was fighting, tiny heavyweight, taking him down over and over. And, like traditional double legs and like trip doubles where he puts the leg through. I'm like, come on, man. And then on top of that, right, Aspinall gets on top, starts throwing these hammers from top half guard and just goes, I'm tired. That's literally what it felt like to me, where he's like, man, I need a break. I need to stop. And he postures up. And as soon as he did it, you could see, the other guy just bucks him over, reverses the position, gets to that heel hook, and it's all over. And Aspinall was just like frustrated with himself, felt like he beat himself in that spot. And I think he's live to do that again here, Do I expect that Tom Aspinall's not going to have moments in this fight? No, he's definitely going to have moments. Like, he's a good athlete. He's got good hands. He's a pretty crisp puncher. He's got better footwork than average for a heavyweight. And he's got good offensive jiu-jitsu. Who could deny that? His defensive jiu-jitsu didn't look completely out of sorts. He was kind of getting ground and pounded a little bit. He's a little open from his bottom half guard, but he also did the right things to shimmy his hips and get up and find escape. So I think that his get-up game isn't terrible, but I think his cardio is certainly a question mark, if not an outright liability. And I think that Sergey Spivak, same age, same size, big guy, more UFC experience against same quality of fighters, in my opinion, with the exception of Arlovsky. Who has Tom Aspinall beat? He beat Alan Baudot, and no offense to Alan Baudot, but it's just like, that's a very low level UFC heavyweight win. Before that, it was Jake Collier. It's like, seems kind of strange that the UFC hasn't really given him many challenges. And even this fight was made on short notice, but I think that this is a trickier matchup for him. I really do. I think that Sergey Spivak could get takedowns here. I think that Sergey Spivak, as long as he doesn't put himself in a dumb submission hold, could find some good opportunities to hold for minutes on top, find some ground and pound, find some control time, wear on that cardio a little bit. I think that he's a very live underdog here, and the market's hip to it, man. Now I'm looking around, plus 205 on DraftKings is the best price that you can get. You could also get that on Bet Online. So plus 205 on the money line. And I'm curious what that inside the distance looks like, if it has moved at all. Spivak inside the distance, you can get for plus 450 if you have Bet365. So basically Bet365 and 5Dimes are offering a pretty good price, but otherwise it has been steamed to plus 400 and below. So glad I got in when I did. Some more action has followed me there. And man, I'm really excited. I think that this is going to be a fun fight. And, it's a real show me spot for Tom Aspinall too. If he's at this level, then he should be able to dispatch Sergey Spivak as other, top 15 heavyweights have. But if not, if he's just a guy trying to find his footing in the division who's young and a little inexperienced, like 10 professional fights, think that this is easily a slip on a banana field fight at heavyweight. And so with those crazy odds, I'm going to have to take a stab.
Yeah, this fight is, I'm really excited for this fight. I think this is a very, very, very interesting fight for where Tom Aspinall is and if he's a real true contender, because I think his boxing, I think his hand speed is near the top of the top. I think he's a very clean striker. I think his 1-2 is super good. I think he's light on his feet. It's just, I feel like this fight, I was very tempted on the Spivak side, at like plus 225. But I decided to stay off. I just kind of want to sit back, evaluate this fight, because I feel like the thing with this fight is I feel like either guy has potential to be like hindsight, like 70+%, because it makes sense to bet Sergey Spivak here, because pretty much only I think I watched like every Tom Aspinall fight that I could. And did we lose Liam? I think we lost him, but I'll keep going until he comes back. I just feel that Sergey Spivak, I went back and watched. Oh, he's good. You good?
Thanks for putting it down in my absence there. I don't know if the hurricane just restarted or what happened, but lost the internet here for a second. Appreciate your patience. Thank you, folks.
Yeah, so, I watched pretty much every Aspinall fight that I could find. And to me, it's just, the one fight where he faced Grappling, I mean, he wasn't able to stuff one takedown. Like, he really wasn't able to stuff any takedown. So, again, that was, I think, 7 years ago or like 6 years ago. He was only 22. So, he definitely could have made improvements. And if he has made improvements and he can, stuff takedowns, or he can work his way back up to the feet, I mean, I think he's going to light up Spivak on the feet. Like, I think Spivak's kind of an underrated striker. I think he's not terrible. I think he has a decent jab he can counter. And, Aspinall is susceptible to being caught with counters. He kind of leaves his chin up in the air a little bit. But, the one time that Sergey Spivak has fought, an athletic heavyweight, he got dumped off in sub 1 minute by Walt Harris, right? So I feel like on the feet.
That was also a while ago, though, in fairness to him. I do think Sergey Spivak is getting better fight over fight, I would argue that he has at least improved the product he's put out. From a fight IQ perspective, I thought it was funny. A lot of hated Alexei Olenek fight from him. I loved it because I was, on Alexei Olenek, and he gave him no chance, right? So if I had been on the other side, I would have been like, thank you, because Alexei needs to grapple you in order to win, right? And I just thought that he was very selective in when he was willing to grapple in that fight, and I thought that made all the difference. So many guys have slipped on a banana peel fighting Alexei Olenek because he looks old and slow and shitty, and they think that they can get in close. Unless you're Chris Daukaus and you can actually just light him up laser fast with the hands, then you should probably be having a pretty conservative game plan, because he also can't go 15 minutes. So if you're Sergey Spivak, who is a heavyweight that can go 15 minutes, exploit every advantage you have. He drug him into deep waters. I thought that he made it look pretty clear and obvious by the end of the day who had won the fight. So I think that Sergey Spivak doesn't always get the credit he deserves in the UFC. And, against a lot of these lower level guys, he has, right? He's been a big favorite. So now he's a massive underdog because he's fighting another, relatively unproven prospect. I don't buy it, Yeah, he's less athletic. So maybe he should be, plus 150, plus 185, at most. Like, I just think that plus 210 is a little disrespectful to his body of work so far in the UFC.
Yeah, I have him around like plus 185 mark. To that comment, I was about to mention that I think Sergey Spivak has very high fight IQ. I think he does. I think he shoots for takedowns when he should shoot for takedowns, and he stands when he should stand. And I think he has pretty good top control. I think if Aspinall has made no improvements in his defensive grappling, I feel like Spivak's gonna get him down and just hold him down and just ground and pound him. But
dude, he literally pounded Jared Vandera, just made a mess of that guy. Like, and now I'm not comparing them in terms of skill level, but I just mean like he could bludgeon somebody from the top position badly. Yes, sir.
Yeah, to me, it's just I wanted to play him, but I just feel that if he can't get the wrestling going, and I know that Tom hasn't really fought any like top guys besides Arlovsky, but I thought there was a really impressive win against Arlovsky. I mean he hurt him early in the round. I mean he showcased the hand speed that he possesses. He showcased that he could fight a distance with Arlovsky, and he took Arlovsky down and choked him out in like 2 seconds. Now I don't necessarily think he's going to take down Spivak. I mean, because I don't see it, but maybe Aspinall actually is a pretty solid wrestler, because I'm not going to say he is, but every fight that I taped, when he shot a takedown, I mean he got it. Again, those are much lower level guys for sure. Mm-hmm. But maybe he's a pretty solid offensive wrestler, and maybe he can take down Spivak potentially.
You just hit the nail on the head, my friend. As with many MMA fighters, better offensive than defensive in every category. And I really think that that's the case with Tom Aspinall. I would say the same thing about his jiu-jitsu. Man, his jiu-jitsu when he's attacking looks phenomenal, right? He can no hooks, rear naked choke Andrei Arlovsky. Now, granted, that was also Andrei Arlovsky had a brain fart, dude. There's no other way to say it. Like, he literally forgot he was in a mixed rules cage fight. He thought he was in a kickboxing match or something. He's like, oh shit, I slipped. I better get up. And he just forgot that you could get choked. I swear, man, because I've never seen anything like it. He's got good submission defense. Like, people don't just like out grapple Arlovsky. So he literally just like forgot. He was like, oh, I better stand up really fast. Went to stand up. And it can happen to anybody. That's the other thing. I think that, man, if Aspinall is who we think he is, then he should come out here. He should be getting his own takedowns, frankly. I think that would put the nail in the coffin for somebody like Sergey Spivak, because if he gets put on his back, he might panic against somebody like Aspinall. That's what Aspinall should be doing. But what I have a hard time ascertaining is how skillful he actually is when Alan Badeau turns to face the cage and then starts throwing up elbows sideways at him. It's like, yeah, you're going to knock that guy out. Like, I don't know what else to say. He had the worst game plan of all time. So I just don't think Sergey Spivak is that kind of walkover, man. And we'll see, man. This is the first real test.
It's difficult to judge, right? Because you look on tape and they're fighting lower level guys and getting takedowns they want, but so it's hard to say like where he's at. But with that, because if everything on tape suggests that he can get these takedowns, again, it's lower level competition, so it's hard to tell like how good he actually is when he takes a step up. And to your point with Spivak against Walt Harris, that being a while ago, it's just if we look at the guys that Sergey Spivak has fought, they've been decently, but none of them are really that athletic. You know what I mean? Like all five of his recent fights, they just don't have the speed and athleticism of Tom Aspinall. So I definitely think that I agree with Sergey Spivak. Anything above plus 200, it makes a lot of sense to me. It's just
they still got plus 205 out there for all you brave soldiers who want to just scrape the little amount of value that might be remaining for 0.25 units or a quarter unit or a half unit. Small, but I think that there, might be a tiny bit of value. And if you're like me and you like that inside the distance look, I think that plus 400 is probably starting to get away from you. But if you have access to any of those other books, might be worth taking a look at. Before we get ourselves out of here, there's 2 fights that I feel are pretty fun from this main card that we have not touched on. And I think that you said you taped these as well. So I wanted to run through Paddy Pimblett and Luigi Vendramini. Man, I don't have a strong take here, but what I would say is it's starting to look to me like Patty is the sharp side, and I don't know that for sure. I'm only saying that based on the line movements I'm seeing. And I say that because, most retail books and the big books are all hanging around plus 135 for Vendramini. And that was after a big feeding frenzy on Vendramini. Like Vendramini got bet down to plus 115, like in most market-wide locations. I wasn't seeing much above plus 125. And now you're seeing almost every book is offering that plus 135 again, which makes me think that there was a sharp buyback on Paddy Pimblett. Could be wrong. That is speculation by me, but I'm looking at the line movements, and I've been, pretty careful to look at them consistently throughout the week. And I'm looking for opportunities, right? I'm looking for books that are hanging lines that don't make sense, lines that don't meet with the market average. And man, the books seem to be pretty coalescing around the fact that this should be minus 155, minus 145 on the Pimblett side, plus 135 on the return for Luigi. So I'm going to kick it to you with that in mind, Phoenix. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I think Patty minus 150 is right. I mean, I think the line, it's like kind of going back and forth, but I think, where he is now is accurate. I've seen like a lot of people on the Vendramini side, and I actually really like Patty, man. I think he's a really good fighter. Honestly, I think that, I think he's fought. I think he's the more experienced MMA fighter. I think by 8 fights. I think he's faced some very solid competition at Cage Wars. I mean, he's fought some UFC guys there as well, albeit they were at some featherweight fights. I have to see them at weigh-ins, but I think Pimblett's like 2 inches taller, and he looks like he has a reach advantage. So I think he might have the size advantage, even though he's the former featherweight. But I think on the feet, I think he's the better striker. I think he has more volume. I think he has more weapons. I mean, Luigi, I've been impressed with Luigi. I think he's a very good fighter too. I mean, being able to take the back of like Zaleski dos Santos up a weight class, on short notice was very impressive to me. I think also, I mean, his last fight with ZM, I mean, that's a really tough fight, being at that big of a size disadvantage against, a kickboxer. And I can't remember. And then he got that knockout win over Ayari, which is pretty impressive too. So I think he's a pretty decent fighter as well. But I think Patty's the better striker. I think he throws more volume. Again, I think he has more weapons. He utilizes kicks very well. So I think that's going to be good to keep the distance against Luigi, who he's low volume, and his main source of strikes is kind of like the blitz in, like 1-2 combo overhands, stuff like that inside. And I feel like Patty, he's got very good movement, and I think those kicks are going to be able to keep Luigi at bay. And I think if this fight hits the mat, this is going to be such an entertaining fight because both guys are black belts, I believe. Luigi is very credible on the ground, but Patty is also very good on the ground. I mean, out of all the fights I've watched, I mean, some of his back takes are just crazy. I mean, he does it so smoothly, and the way he sinks in these chokes are just effortless and fluid. I think he's a very good grappler. I think he's a well-rounded guy. I do think on the feet, he's hittable, and he is susceptible to being hit by explosive shots by Luigi. And I think that, Luigi will have some success in this fight on the feet. But this is just a spot where I feel like the line is right because I just feel that Patty is slightly better everywhere. I mean, I think no matter where the fight goes, I think he'll be favored, albeit we don't really know until we see them fight. So I'm not overconfident in it. But I just don't see what Vendramini brings to the table that is superior that I have seen. Besides maybe, I mean, him taking the back of Zaleski was solid. But I think Patty's a very good grappler. Like if you watch his last 2 fights where he got those first round finishes, I mean, it was just amazing to watch how great it was. And his losses too have been credible. Just the grappling exchanges he's been a part of are very good. And he's got a win over Julian Erosa in the UFC, and he had a good fight with Narimani as well. So again, I'm not going to go out and say that I'm a Patty top 5 contender, top 15 guy yet. I want to see it in the octagon, but I think he's just the better fighter wherever it hits. Not by a substantial margin, but by enough of a margin that I can put him minus 150 here.
That makes sense well enough to me, my friend. The last one that I was going to leave with, and just wanted to shout out Gramps, 1 unit on Luigi, not a Patty believer. Fair enough, Gramps. I have not put my money where my mouth is at all on this fight. We got Evan Kroll. Shout out Evan in the chat, says Shore, McCann, and Kim. Fight goes the distance at minus 168 on the parlay. I got minus 175 on that same parlay, brother. So I like where your head's at, my friend. I am going to agree with you there. We got Monk. Liam, what's up, homie? Monk, appreciate you stopping by, brother. We got 9 people watching live with us. And the last fight that we're going to talk about for you folks is Modestas Bukauskas and Khalil Roundtree, which frankly, I don't have the strongest opinion on this one, man. I'll tell you, I like Modestas Bukauskas by and large from a personality standpoint. You know, I've liked his story. That being said, the skills have left a little bit to be desired. Kind of thought he won the Oleg Zajic fight. So I was a little surprised by that outcome at the time. And I believe I had a bet on Oleg Zajic that night. So, you know, I thought with a pretty clear eye that was just not necessarily the right decision. But I also think that, you know, the Michailidis win doesn't mean a tremendous amount to me. I actually value his wins from prior to the UFC more than that. I believe it was Martin Hamlet that he beat in Cage Warriors. So he's got credible wins to his name. He's just a little hittable. His durability can be called into question. And at 205, you know, that's a really scary proposition. Khalil Roundtree hits like an effing truck as well. But the problem is, you know, a lot of people don't want to bet on Khalil because they got burnt betting on him as a huge favorite last time out. And, you know, I almost think that you throw out that fight. I think Marcin Prachnio just surprised everybody with the durability that he wasn't supposed to have in that spot, probably prescribed. So God bless him. But I feel like Khalil Roundtree didn't show his worst performance ever or anything in that fight. You know, he looked worse in the Kutalaba fight, by example. He's looked worse in the UFC before than that. So I don't know that that's the reason to necessarily just shut down the Khalil Roundtree train. And from what I'm hearing, his training situation, you know, has been pretty decent stateside. So maybe we see a better version of Khalil Roundtree in this spot. How do you feel, Phoenix?
Yeah, very, very similar to you. I think it's a close fight. I don't have really a strong take either side. I do favor Modestas just because I feel like the Oleg Zajic fight was actually a really good look for him. Not because I thought he won the fight, but I feel he showcased a lot of improvements in that fight. I mean, one of my biggest criticisms about him going into that fight was, especially in the Crute fight, was he throws a lot of naked kicks. You know, kicks that just, you know, he leaves his chin wide up in the air. And I think against Oleg Zajic, he didn't really do that. I felt like he was much more. I feel like he learned from that mistake, and he didn't really make those same mistakes. I also think his durability. I think a lot of people saying that he's like completely not a durable fighter. I've seen some of those take. I think, you know, I don't agree with that. I think he can take. I mean, Jimmy Crute, like that was a clean shot that he got hit with, and then a follow up. And he ate some shots against Oleg Zajic as well. So I don't think his durability is terrible. I think he can take a shot. I'm not saying he's the most durable fighter, but I think he can take a shot.
He ate shots on the regionals as well, man.
And on the regionals as well, yeah. I just feel the reason I favor him is I just think that if this fight gets extended, he wins round 3 at a very high clip. I think he's got the better cardio. And I think he's going to have the size advantage here as well. And you know, I think he's, you know, I don't really put too much stock into capping it like this, but you know, I feel like Khalil Roundtree's headspace is just a big question mark. I mean, he's just, you know, I think he was gonna like hang him up in like end of 2019, after the Kutalaba fight, I think. So I don't really know where he is mentally, and he's just such an inconsistent performer. I mean, like watching the Eric Anders fight, I never had watched that fight prior, and wow, he looked like he destroyed Eric Anders, like dominated start to finish, looked great in that fight. And then, you know, again, Marcin Prachnio, I mean, he surprised a lot of people, but it's hard for me when he loses to Prachnio because, you know, we don't really know if Prachnio is like a solid fighter now. I mean, he beat Roundtree, and then he goes on to beat, you know, another lower level Villanueva. So I don't really know where he stands in the division in terms of where his talent lies. But so those are really the only things that lean me to slightly favor Bukauskas, is just the fact that I think he has the better cardio. I think he's gonna have the size advantage, and I think he's more mentally in it. I mean, it's not a lot. Again, I don't have a strong take on this fight, but I do slightly favor him. But again, like, you know, Roundtree at plus money could be pretty solid because I think the guys are really. I think he's a good fighter. I think he has a lot of potential to be a very solid fighter if he can just put it together. So slightly favor Bukauskas, but I'm in the same boat as you. As like, don't have a strong take either way.
Well, I could just add for the people watching that if you are interested in that Khalil Roundtree money line, BetOnline and DraftKings are both hanging plus 135 right now, which is the best available market price. And on average, he's sitting around plus 129 on the market. And that's being skewed up a little bit by those plus 135 opportunities, because you're seeing at a lot of books, he's sitting at a plus 120 something number. So for whatever that's worth, if you're on the Khalil, money line, you're going to want to look at DraftKings. You're going to want to look at BetOnline as your best possible options there. And guys, I think that will about wrap it up for us today. I want to appreciate the 10 people that are still in here rocking with us. We got one question on the way out. Hilario Celis, I believe I got that right. I certainly hope so, sir. Says over 1.5. You're talking about for the Khalil Roundtree fight, I believe. And he's asking, do we think that that's a solid play? I'd need to know a number. So let me take a look.
Minus 150, 140.
And it goes over.
Yeah, minus
man, I actually don't like laying that kind of chalk in a situation where we have two guys with power. Bukauskas doesn't have tremendous power, but he has some, and he's certainly shown some finishing instincts in his career. And Khalil has kind of undeniable power, like sent Gokhan Saki to the shadow realm that one time. So, I think that I get where your head's at. I do think it's going to go over, but if we're saying it happens at 60% of the time, that's where I'm starting to say, if you're going to play that, I would play it small. I'd limit your exposure there. But I would also look at, the fight to go to decision. If you're thinking that the fight's going to go over, I don't know how likely the late finish is as relative to the early finish. I do think an early finish is more likely in this spot. For either guy, we tend to see, bigger fighters get to work early and then slow down if they're still hanging around. So that's one thing to keep in mind there. But, I think that would be a play I would end up passing on. But if you do play it, I would just encourage you, look to play that small in all likelihood. Now, thank you guys. I want to say appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in today. My man Phoenix, I want to thank him tremendously for coming on the show, blessing the people with some of his knowledge, some of his opinions for this fight card. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Phoenix. Tell the people where they can find you and what all you got going on, my friend.
Yeah, just Phoenix_MMA on Twitter and Phoenix_MMA on YouTube. Pretty much two spots I'm on. And yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me. Did I think Liam cut out, or is this me?
I hope I'm back. Guys, I'm
back.
cutting out on the chat as I'm trying to close out the show. So that's a sign from the universe. Thank you all. I have appreciated spending some time with you guys. Everybody who lit up the chat today, thank you guys so much. Thank you to my man Phoenix. God bless you all. Enjoy those fights. Thank you to my sponsor today, Prize Picks. Reminder on the way out, this is not a betting company. This is a fantasy sports company. If you want to put in an entry this weekend like I am going to be doing, then go ahead, get signed up at Prize Picks. Like I said, they will deposit match you 100% up to $100 deposit, and go ahead and put in that promo code Liam. They'll always help you out, and that helps out the show tremendously. So appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in. And until next time, God bless you all and enjoy those fights.